Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome to the first episode of Kamen Rider Reviews. For the first episode, I am doing Kamen Rider Ryuki, and I promise you this is going to be a long review because there's a lot to go over. I mean, this is just the notes. That's a lot of stuff. So, prepare to be confused for most of my viewers. I'm sorry. I'll try to explain this as much as I can. This season we have Kamen Rider Ryuki. It's season 12 of the entire Kamen Rider series. It is the third season of the Heisei era, which is pretty much the newer series, where it restarted after Kuga, which is back then, because this is the third season into it, of the Heisei era. But overall, it's season 12 of the Kamen Rider series altogether. This season has 50 episodes. It aired February 3rd, 2002 to January 19th, 2003. Like I said, this is the very first Kamen Rider series I actually watched. And for being my first Kamen Rider series I watched, I actually thought it was really good. The story was really well done. Or that could just be me. The characters, there was a lot of characters that I thought was pretty good. Some characters I hated. There was characters I actually hated, but I thought it was pretty cool. Pretty much, the whole concept of Ryuki was pretty good. For Kamen Rider, this is completely different as a Super Sentai Power Rangers. Kamen Rider is Kamen Rider. Usually, well, what I've seen on the wiki and like videos of previews or anything of other Kamen Riders, there's usually just one Kamen Rider. Or maybe there's usually a secondary rider, but not this many. There is 13 Kamen Riders in this season, so maybe I started off a little too much for this Kamen Rider series as my first one. But hey, I pulled the name first out of a hat, so I had to do it. Because like I said, with the Super Sentai, I'm doing these and out of order just to give a little variety. Now let's get started. Kamen Rider is different, like I said. They don't have morphers or anything to transform. They have belts. The Kamen Riders usually their transformation is belts. So yeah, they use belts and they transform by using the belt and the word henshin, which transforms them into the Kamen Rider that their respective Kamen Rider. Now, like I said, there's 13 Kamen Riders in this the Ryuki world. The only thing is, in the actual TV series, we only see 10 plus 2 Imitation Riders, which I'll get into later. We don't actually see the other 13 Riders. Because the 13 Riders, because it's about this guy, he creates 13 advent decks, which are these little deck things that has cards in them, and he chose 13 people to have like a little war between them, and whoever the last one that comes out alive gets a wish for anything they want. And so there's also a reason behind the guy that started this thing, because he also created the decks for this reason. But I'll get to that later. Like I said, there's 13. I keep on saying this first. Sorry. There's 13 riders altogether, but you only get to see 10 in the actual TV series. In the movie and the special, they actually introduced the last 3 riders. That's actually part of this whole 13, which I won't go over until because the movies and specials are a totally different review. I'm actually saving those for later. Now let's get to the actual writers of this season, that you actually see in the TV series. For the main character of the entire series, we have Shinji Kido. He actually stumbles upon his Advent deck. He is an accidental Kamen Rider, because he's a reporter. He goes to this apartment, finds the deck that used to belong to this person that has now disappeared, has nowhere to be, and for all the Kamen Riders, they have to make contracts with monsters that mirror monsters that come from the other side of, like, reflections, like mirrors or anything that pretty much has like a reflection, like cars, glass, TVs, pretty much anything with a reflection. And they have to make a contract with a monster on the other side so they can actually turn into a full-fledged Kamen Rider. If they don't, they'll be called what they call a blank form, which is where they just look blank. It's just like gray and there's no color whatsoever until they actually make a contract with a monster. Now, once they make a contract, they have to go defeat mirror monsters and feed them their contract monsters. And if they don't, they'll eventually get eaten. If they don't feed their contract monsters over a certain amount of time, their contract monster will actually attack them to try to eat them, because that's the contract. If you don't feed me, it's like, you feed me, I'll give you my power. But if you don't feed me, I'll eat you. So they have, at the same time with this war, they actually have to take care of their partner contract monster. So Shinji Kido, he makes a contract with Jugretter, which is a dragon. Then he becomes Kamen Rider Ryuki. I would have to say Ryuki would probably have to be one of my favorite riders of this series. So I thought it was pretty cool. Then throughout the entire series, we meet the rest of the other Kamen Riders throughout the other 9 that's in the series, plus the 2 imitations. I'll get to later. We have Ren Akiyama, who is Kamen Rider Knight. He makes a contract with Darkwing, which is a bat. Now for Ryuki and Knight, later on near the end, they get this this card called Survive, which pretty much gives them a boost of power and pretty much evolves their contract monster. Jugretter evolves into Dragranzer, and Darkwing evolves into Dark Raider, or Rider, whichever one you want to go with. It's R-A-I-D-E-R, so it can be Raider or Rider, whatever. Then we have Kamen Rider Scissors, Masashi Sudo. He's not in it for that long because he dies pretty much the only episodes that he's in, he dies afterwards. His partner was full cancer, and here's the thing about the Advent decks. If they get damaged in any way, like they get destroyed, the contract is broken, and then the monster will eat you if they're nearby. Because they also introduced that if another person, because they also had this one thing where this rider killed another rider, but then that rider's contract monster wants revenge on this on the guy that killed him. So I didn't really get that. I mean, I think the only reason why Scissors' partner ate him is because he was just right there. I don't really know. Then we have Kamen Rider Zolda. He is a long-range fighter. Most of these are pretty much close-up fighters. This guy's the only one that has a gun. He is Soichi Kitaoka. He is the super lawyer. Now this guy I hate. I had a love-hate relationship with this guy because This guy, he was pretty cool, but he was kind of dick to a lot of the characters. But then he warms up to them. It's just, I thought it was, like I said, love-hate relationship. His partner was Magnugiga, which is a bull thing. This giant robotic bull. Minotaur, I should actually say. So I thought it was pretty cool. Then we have Kamen Rider Raya, who is Miyuki Tezuka. He actually took over this spot from his friend because his friend didn't want to participate in the war, so he died from a monster right in front of him, so he decided that he would actually take his place and stop the fighting. Like Shinji, he wants to stop the Rider war because he doesn't see the point of riders fighting each other. Raya's partner is oops, I put the wrong contract monster for Raya. Raya's contract monster is Evil Diver, which is a manta ray. Then we have Kamen Rider Guy, Jun Shinbara. His contract monster is Metal Gilas, which is a rhino, a mechanical rhino. This guy was an ass. I hate this guy. I did not have a love-hate relationship. This guy was a complete ass. I hated this guy. So I was very happy when this guy was killed off. That's how much I hated him. Then we have Kamen Rider Oja, Takashi Asakura. This guy is a nutcase. His partner is Vino Snaker, which is a snake. Now, with the same thing with Kitoka. I actually had a love-hate relationship with this guy too. This guy even though he was a complete psychopath, I thought he was pretty cool. Because in some episodes he would actually show compassion and remorse for people. And it was just those moments where I actually thought this character is actually human. He actually has a heart. And I thought that was pretty cool. But then of course he goes back to being a psychopathic maniac. But other than that, it was pretty cool. Then we have Kamen Rider Tiger, Satoru Tojo. Wow, I really messed this thing up. Kamen Rider Tiger's contract partner is Diswalder, which is a tiger. This guy was kind of a little messed up in the brain because he was trying to become a hero, but he actually killed a couple of his friends just in the process of it, who were one was a rider, one was an imitation rider, because he thought that if he gets close to people he has to kill them so he can actually become stronger. So it's kind of, so I find it, and all the people who watch this probably found it ironic when he actually died saving a boy and a father and his kid, and it's kind of ironic because he actually died in the process because he got hit by a truck trying to save him. And it's ironic because the next day he actually is labeled a hero, but he's dead and he doesn't know. So it's ironic. All this time he wanted to be a hero, and when he does, he's dead. And then Kamen Rider Odin is the last Kamen Rider to be introduced in the series, but he announces himself as the 13th member, so he's the 13th rider. Because during this time, you would probably have watched the special and the movie that goes along with the series, but like I said, I'm saving those for another time. So in my mind, of course he's the 13th member, but he's the 10th member. He's the 10th rider that you actually see in the series. Wow, I messed up. Oh, I'll just go with Odin. There's another rider, sorry. I saw through over. Odin, there's not just one person that's Odin, because the advent deck that goes with Odin pretty much makes the person who wields it a mindless puppet for the guy that created the decks. So it could be passed on to person to person, and without anything remorse for death or anything, so it's just a puppet for this one guy that created it, which I'll get into later. His partner, Contract Monster, is Gold Phoenix, which is supposed to be one of the strongest contract monsters that in the entire world, Ryuki. Then we have the last rider before Odin. Well, he's introduced after Odin, but he's the last full rider in the TV series. Kamen Rider Emperor Mitsuru Sano. His partner is the Gigazel, which he can control a lot of them. Now this guy I felt sorry for. I kind of liked him, but I also felt the only thing I really did, I felt really sorry for this guy, because this guy had amazingly bad luck. And now the main reason why he wanted the war, his wish was so he can actually so he can get he can live a better life. But during the time that we were watching him, he loses his job. He lives in a crappy apartment, and then his dad dies. And his dad was a part of this multi-billionaire company. He becomes a billionaire, and then shit happens. He dies, and he's like, "Why does this happen to me?" He was actually, when he finally actually finds happiness, he dies. So I felt very, very sorry for him. And like I said, those are the 10 full riders right there. Also in the series, we have 2 imitation riders. Imitation means they're not actual riders. They were just, excuse me, imitations of riders. They looked completely different from the other riders, but they were not riders. The first one was alternative. Hajime Nakamura. His partner was a Psycho Rogue, which is supposed to be based off like a grasshopper or cricket, and I can't really see that because the contract monster does not look like what they say it is. But of course he dies because he's killed by Tiger. And then you have Alternative Zero. He's actually the leader of this little group in the series. His name is Hideyuki Kagawa. Like I said, Alternative Zero and Alternative is the same thing. It's just one is supposed to be more powerful. I don't know. I really don't. I think it's supposed to differentiate between them. But his partner was also a Psycho Rogue. But he also dies. Now, pretty much what I got from this whole thing, by the end of the entire series, only one rider was left alive. Can you guess? And no, it's not the main character. It is Kamen Rider Knight, Rin Akiyama. He's the actual one that lives. He's the only one out of the 10 of the actual series to be living. The main character dies in episode 49. He dies like second to the last episode. I know. I was shocked. But of course, because of Rin's wish, he gets his girlfriend back and time reverses itself. So all these people right here that was a Kamen Rider is back to life. So I thought that was pretty cool. And this ending was just a thing for me. But that's enough for the Kamen Riders. We have some allies. We have Yui Kanzaki, which is the whole. This is pretty much where the whole war is based around, because her brother Shiro Kanzaki is the one that created the Advent Decks. I'm not going to really get much into that premises, because that's pretty much the entire thing of the reason behind the Rider War. So I'm not going to get much into it. Their brother and sister, and when they were little, they got separated. Yui stayed with her grandmother, Sanako Kanzaki. She's a little bit not crazy in a bad way, but she's just loony. But yeah. she befriends Ryuki, and then Shinji. Well, she befriends Ren, and then she befriends Shinji, and then she becomes friends with some other people and stuff. With Shiro, the guy that played him, in the moments of time of seriousness, that's pretty much throughout the entire series, he was actually pretty good. But when he actually came to heartfelt moments with his sister near the end, when he actually was trying to reason with her, and when he's not serious, it was just like he was overdoing it, which I find hilarious. So I thought that was fun. Then we also have the Ore Journal is co-workers and allies to Shinji. We have Daisuke Okubo. He runs Ore Journal, and then he has his reporter Reiko Momoi, along with Shinji, of course. Then you have the tech person Nanako Shimada, and then at the end, near the end, they hire a new person, Megumi Asano, and that's Ore Journal, and that's what they do. It isn't until the end until they actually find out, but of course, that about Shinji's secret. That's pretty much it. And then you also have another person, Goro Yura. He is the personal assistant to Kitoka because of something happened with them, and Goro feels indebted to Kitoka, so he stays with him, cooks for him and stuff. Let's see. I already told you about the admin decks. They were created by Shiro. He created them. He started the Rider War, which Rider War is where 13 riders fight for one wish. Any wish that they can't have, they will have. Mirror monsters are the monsters that inhabit Mirror World, and they live off humans. So they have to. They come from any reflections surface that has reflections on it, like water, mirrors, TV. When the TV's off, anything that has mirrors. Now, for when the riders transform, they present the advent deck to any of the reflective surface. So like let's say if like a monster is right there in front of a glass, I just present the deck, and then do like a little thing, announce Henshin, put the card into the belt, put the deck into the belt, and they transform, and they can go through the mirror and go into Mirror World. But then they also have there's a certain time limit to how long they can be in there. If they don't, they'll disappear. So they also have to make sure that they go out the way they came in. So they have to make sure they're near there. I'm pretty for sure that if they can transform and not go into the Mirror World, because they transform outside Mirror World and they can go into it. And I've seen instances in other specials for like Superhero Tyson, Ryuki was in it. So I'm pretty for sure that they can transform into the Kamen Rider and use their powers in the real world, I think. But it's not really technically explained for the real world, because all the fighting is done in the Mirror World. And that's pretty much without giving pretty much the main thing away. Even though I told you that a lot of people, pretty much everyone dies in the series of the Riders, but that's not the main reason for this entire series. That I'm keeping to myself, and for you to find out. So, like I said, that's pretty much it for this series. This was a pretty long review because, like I said, a lot has happened. Pretty much for all the Kamen Rider reviews is going to be as long as these. So be prepared for it. You might get bored. I am sorry. That's why I have other videos you can watch. But I think it went pretty well for my first Kamen Rider review, so I have another one ready, which won't be until December, which I won't tell you, but here my notes for it. Oh well, there. It's Kamen Rider O's. O. It's pronounced O's, but it's O. It can be pronounced O or O's. But I'm pretty for sure that these are going to be the Kamen Rider, specifically the Kamen Rider reviews are going to be this long because there's a lot that happens in each of the series. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Overall, the characters were pretty well done. So, like I said in the beginning, there was characters I hated, just hated. There was some that I liked, but I had ups and down feelings with them. There was ones I actually just liked. I liked the concept of the entire series of the series, and I thought it was pretty well done. Oh, and then just side note, I'm just nitpicking here, but the way that they kind of filmed it, it was just. I think it was because this was like back in 2003. It feels like the way that they filmed it was a little bit older, stylized. But that's just a little detail. But other than that, it was really well done. So, I was, like I said in my other videos, I will see you in December because of Thanksgiving next week. So, I will see you until then. Leave any comments down below what you think about this. If you've actually seen Kamen Rider Review, comment any of the Kamen Riders, even the American version. Well, because there's only two that I know of that's been Americanized, which is this one, Kamen Rider Ryuki, and then another one. But you can say if you've seen that. I don't care. Leave any comments down below. Like this video, share it, like my Facebook page, and I will see you in December. And have a happy Thanksgiving.